ExamPrep.School. Maine Property and Casualty Insurance Consultant Exam, Exam Code 12-ME-48. There are 4 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Basic Risk Management and Coverage, Maine Insurance Law, Maine Tort Claims Act, Maine Workers' Compensation Law, types of property casualty policies, related terms, concepts, and provisions. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which statement accurately distinguishes a split limit liability policy from a combined single limit liability policy in a personal auto policy? A split limit policy offers one aggregate limit for all liability and includes a deductible, whereas a combined single limit policy has no deductible and separate limits. B, a combined single limit policy establishes separate per person limits for bodily injury and a separate limit for property damage, whereas a split limit policy merges bodily injury and property damage into a single limit. C, a split limit policy provides separate per person and per accident limits for bodily injury, plus a separate property damage limit, whereas a combined single limit policy provides one overall limit per accident for all liability coverages. D, a combined single limit policy applies only to bodily injury liability, whereas a split limit policy applies only to property damage liability. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that split limits specify separate caps for per person, per accident, and property damage, while a combined single limit merges all liability coverages under one per accident limit. Reason A is not correct. Neither policy type imposes a deductible on liability coverage by default, and split limits are not aggregate limits. Reason B is not correct. This reverses the definitions by suggesting the combined single limit splits coverages and the split limit combines them, which is incorrect. North Carolina rules mandate that bail bondsmen complete 8 hours of commissioner-approved continuing education within each 2-year renewal cycle. Question 2. Under Part A liability coverage of a personal auto policy, which of the following scenarios would be excluded from coverage? A, an insured accidentally injures a bicyclist when failing to yield at a stop sign. B, an insured intentionally pushes someone against a parked vehicle, causing bodily injury. C, an insured negligently rear-ends a vehicle and injures the driver. Or D, an insured's dog, left unattended in the vehicle, bites a passerby. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is that intentional injury is excluded under Part A, so any act committed with intent to cause bodily harm is not covered. Reason A is not correct. This describes accidental negligence, which is covered under Part A liability. Reason C is not correct. Negligent rear-end collisions that cause injury are standardly covered. Reason D is not correct. Animal bite liability by an insured's pet is generally covered under Part A. Question 3. How does medical payments coverage under a personal auto policy coordinate with the insured's primary health insurance benefits? A, medical payments coverage reimburses the insured for health insurance deductibles before any health benefits apply. B, medical payments coverage is secondary and only reimburses expenses after the health insurer's limits are exhausted. C, medical payments coverage and health insurance share expenses on a pro rata basis based on their respective limits. D, medical payments coverage acts as the primary payer and subrogates against the health insurer for any amounts it pays. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is that medical payments coverage typically pays first and then exercises subrogation rights to recover from the insured's health insurer. Reason A is not correct. Medical payments coverage does not specifically reimburse for deductibles before health benefits apply. Reason B is not correct. Medical payments coverage is not secondary under a personal auto policy and does not require exhaustion of health benefits. Reason C is not correct. There is no pro rata sharing arrangement between medical payments and health insurance. Question 4. Which best distinguishes the trigger for underinsured motorist coverage from the trigger for uninsured motorist coverage under a personal auto policy? A. Underinsured coverage applies when the at-fault driver has no liability insurance, while uninsured coverage applies when the liability limits are lower than the claimant's damages. B. Underinsured coverage requires a collision with an insured vehicle, whereas uninsured coverage applies if the at-fault driver is under the influence. C. Underinsured coverage is triggered when the at-fault driver's liability limits are below the insured's damages, while uninsured coverage is triggered when the at-fault driver lacks any liability insurance or is insolvent. D. Underinsured coverage applies only to property damage losses, while uninsured coverage applies only to bodily injury losses. The correct answer is C. The correct answer is that underinsured motorist coverage responds when liability limits are inadequate to cover damages, whereas uninsured motorist coverage responds when there is no liability insurance or the insurer is insolvent. Reason A is not correct. This reverses the conditions by swapping the triggers for underinsured and uninsured coverage. Reason B is not correct. Coverage triggers are based on insurance limits or existence, not on collision with insured vehicles or DUI status. Reason D is not correct. Both coverages apply to bodily injury and property damage, not exclusively to one or the other. Question 5. Avery's SUV is dented, and the headlights are broken when a deer suddenly runs into the roadway and strikes the front bumper. Under Avery's personal auto policy, which coverage part applies to this loss? A. Collision coverage. B. Other than collision coverage. C. Sound reproducing equipment coverage. D. Medical payments coverage. The correct answer is B. This loss is caused by striking an animal, which is classified under the PAP's other than collision, comprehensive coverage. Collision covers upset or impact with another vehicle or object, but animal impacts fall under comprehensive perils. Reason A is not correct. Collision coverage covers upset of the auto or collision with another vehicle or object, but animal strikes are handled under other than collision. Reason C is not correct. Sound reproducing equipment coverage specifically insures only aftermarket audio equipment, not general physical damage. Reason D is not correct. Medical payments coverage pays for occupant injuries, not vehicle damage. Question 6. John's PAP includes optional transportation expenses coverage of $25 per day with a 48-hour waiting period for collision losses. His vehicle was damaged in a collision on March 1st, and he rented a car for 5 days. How much will the insurer reimburse under this endorsement? A. $125. B. $75. C. $0. D. $150. The correct answer is B. The waiting period defers payment for the first 2 days after the collision. Of the 5 rental days, only days 3 through 5 are reimbursable. 3 days multiplied by $25 a day equals $75. Reason A is not correct. Calculating reimbursement for all 5 days ignores the required 48-hour waiting period for collision losses. Reason C is not correct. A zero payment would imply no coverage or failure to satisfy policy provisions, which is incorrect since the waiting period only delays benefit. Reason D is not correct. Multiplying 6 days multiplied by $25 mistakenly assumes either a 24-hour delay or an extra rental day. Question 7. Emily is a graduate student without a vehicle who occasionally drives a friend's car. She wants liability protection when she uses non-owned autos. Which endorsement on her personal auto policy provides this coverage? A. Non-owner coverage endorsement. B. Named non-owner endorsement. C. Extended non-owned coverage endorsement. D. Collision deductible waiver endorsement. The correct answer is B. A named non-owner endorsement is attached to Emily's policy and specifically provides liability coverage for a listed individual when driving autos not owned by that person. Reason A is not correct. A generic non-owner coverage endorsement is broader and not tied to a specific individual named on the policy. Reason C is not correct. The extended non-owned endorsement extends physical damage coverage to borrowed or rented autos, but does not fulfill liability needs for a named driver. Reason D is not correct. A collision deductible waiver endorsement applies only to waiving the deductible and does not provide liability coverage. Question 8. A small consulting firm rents passenger cars for employee travel and wants damage to those rented vehicles covered under its corporate PAP. Which endorsement should the firm add? A. Named non-owner endorsement. B. Extended non-owned coverage endorsement. C. Hired auto physical damage endorsement. D. Broad form endorsement. The correct answer is B. The extended non-owned coverage endorsement permits physical damage coverage on autos the insured does not own, such as rented vehicles, under the PAP's physical damage section. Reason A is not correct. A named non-owner endorsement provides only liability coverage, not physical damage for non-owned autos. Reason C is not correct. A hired auto physical damage endorsement is similar but applies only to hired autos and may exclude some rentals. Extended coverage specifically broadens coverage under the PAP. Reason D is not correct. A broad form endorsement typically expands liability coverage and does not address physical damage to rented autos. Question 9. Under an H03 homeowner's policy, which of the following best describes the scope of coverage provided for the dwelling under coverage A and the personal property under coverage C? A. The dwelling is insured on an open perils basis. Personal property is covered only for named perils. B. The dwelling is insured for named perils only. Personal property is insured on an open perils basis. C. Both the dwelling and personal property are insured on an open perils basis. D. Both the dwelling and personal property are insured for named perils only. The correct answer is A. The H03 form provides open peril coverage for the dwelling under coverage A, while personal property under coverage C is covered only for the specifically named perils listed in the policy. Reason B is not correct. This reverses the perils. The dwelling is open peril and contents are named peril, rather than the other way around. Reason C is not correct. Personal property is not insured on an open perils basis under coverage C. It is named peril only. Reason D is not correct. Only personal property is limited to named perils. The dwelling is insured on an open perils basis. Question 10. A homeowner carries an H03 policy with a coverage A limit of $400,000. What is the standard coverage B limit for other structures under this policy? A. $40,000. B. $20,000. C. $4,000. D. $60,000. The correct answer is A. Under an H03 policy, coverage B for other structures is automatically set at 10% of the coverage A limit, which equals $40,000 when coverage A is $400,000. Reason B is not correct. That represents 5% of coverage A, but the standard for other structures is 10%. Reason C is not correct. That represents 1% of coverage A, which is not the standard under an H03 policy. Reason D is not correct. That represents 15% of coverage A, However, the policy provides 10% for other structures by default. Question 11. Under the special limits of coverage C in an HO3 policy, what is the maximum payable amount for theft of jewelry or furs? A. $1,500. B. $2,500. C. $1,000. D. $3,000. The correct answer is A. The HO3 policy imposes a special limit of $1,500 for theft of jewelry and furs under coverage C, regardless of their actual value up to that amount. Reason B is not correct. That is the limit for certain other categories like silverware or firearms, not jewelry or furs. Reason C is not correct. That amount is lower than the established special limit for jewelry and furs under the policy. Reason D is not correct. That figure exceeds the special limit assigned for jewelry and furs in coverage C. Question 12. After a nearby building fire, a gas leak prompts a local order prohibiting residents from occupying their homes. Under the homeowner's policy, which situation would qualify for coverage D, additional living expense coverage? A. Civil authority orders evacuation due to a gas leak from the neighboring structure. B. Detection of a termite infestation, requiring 1 week of structural fumigation and relocation. C. Accumulation of water in a crawl space requiring pump repair while the owner sleeps upstairs. D. Smoke odor from a minor basement electrical fire, although the home remains safe to occupy. The correct answer is A. Additional living expense under coverage D is triggered when a civil authority prohibits access to the insured residence due to direct damage to nearby property by a covered peril. Termite fumigation, minor crawl space leaks without loss of habitability, and mere smoke odor without an order to vacate are not covered triggers. Reason B is not correct. Fumigation for a termite infestation involves an excluded loss, PES, and does not qualify as a covered peril. Reason C is not correct. Minor water in the crawl space does not render the home uninhabitable, so no additional living expense is payable. Reason D is not correct. Smoke odor alone without an official prohibition or unsafe condition does not trigger additional living expense. Question 13. A homeowner's policy includes coverage E for personal liability. Which scenario best represents an occurrence under that coverage? A. The insured intentionally slams a door in a visitor's hand, causing injury. B. The insured posts false, defamatory comments about a coworker on social media. C. The insured negligently borrows a friend's car, crashes it, and injures a pedestrian. D. The insured's dog runs into the yard and bites a neighbor's guest during a barbecue. The correct answer is D. Coverage E applies to accidental bodily injury or property damage arising from an occurrence. A dog bite by the insured's pet is an unintentional event covered as an occurrence. Defamation, bodily injury from a borrowed auto, and intentional acts are excluded. Reason A is not correct. Intentional injury is expressly excluded from coverage E occurrences. Reason B is not correct. Defamatory statements are personal injury coverage, not general liability for bodily injury or property damage. Reason C is not correct. Liability arising from the use of an automobile is excluded under the homeowner's policy. Question 14. Under coverage, F, medical payments to others, of a homeowner's policy, which of the following situations would be covered without regard to fault? A. A neighbor riding a motorcycle crashes on the private driveway and is injured. B. A guest trips over a loose rug in the living room and fractures a wrist. C. The insured spouse falls on the basement stairs and breaks an ankle. D. An adult child living with the insured trips on outdoor steps and sprains a knee. The correct answer is B. Coverage F provides no-fault medical payments to non-residents injured on the insured premises. A fracturing wrist sustained by an invited guest inside the home qualifies. Injuries to residents, household members, and those injured by motor vehicle use are excluded. Reason A is not correct. Injuries arising from the use of a motor vehicle are excluded from coverage F. Reason C is not correct. Residents and insured household members, including spouses, are excluded from medical payments coverage. Reason D is not correct. Household members such as resident children are excluded from coverage F benefits. Question 15. A homeowner carries an HO3 policy with a replacement cost endorsement on the dwelling. After a windstorm damages shingles, the insurer first issues an initial payment equal to the actual cash value of the loss. Which statement correctly describes the remaining settlement? A. The insurer waives depreciation and pays full replacement cost immediately. B. The insurer settles solely on an actual cash value basis, since the endorsement applies only to personal property. C. The insurer pays depreciation initially as actual cash value, then pays the additional amount for full replacement cost once repairs are completed. D. The insurer pays full replacement cost if the homeowner notifies within 30 days of loss. The correct answer is C. With a replacement cost endorsement, the insurer first pays the depreciated, actual cash value amount, then pays the remaining cost to restore the dwelling to its pre-loss condition after proof of repair or replacement within the policy timeframe. Reason A is not correct. Depreciation is not waived up front. The full replacement cost is not paid immediately. Reason B is not correct. The replacement cost endorsement applies to the dwelling, not just personal property. Reason D is not correct. Replacement cost payment is conditioned on actual repair replacement, not solely on notification within 30 days. Question 16. Which option accurately characterizes the coverage trigger for an occurrence form CGL policy and a claims-made form, respectively? A. Coverage is triggered for bodily injury or property damage occurring during the policy period only if the claim is filed within the same period. Coverage is triggered when the insured's act first occurs, regardless of when the claim is presented. B. Coverage is triggered when a claim is reported during the policy period, regardless of when bodily injury occurred. Coverage is triggered when bodily injury occurs during the policy period, irrespective of claim timing. C. Coverage is triggered when bodily injury or property damage arises out of the insured's premises or operations during the policy period, irrespective of when the claim is filed. Coverage is triggered only for claims resulting from wrongful acts committed during the policy period, regardless of the injury date. D. Coverage is triggered when an insured's act results in bodily injury or property damage during the policy period, regardless of when the claim is filed. Coverage is triggered when a claim is first made against the insured during the policy period, provided the act occurred after any retroactive date, and the claim is reported within the policy or extended reporting period. The correct answer is D. The correct answer clearly defines occurrence coverage as triggered by when injury occurs, regardless of claim timing, and claims made coverage as triggered by when claims are made, subject to retroactive date and reporting periods. Reason A is not correct. This misrepresents both triggers by requiring claim filing for occurrence coverage and ignoring retroactive and extended reporting periods for claims made. Reason B is not correct. This option reverses the definitions, attributing the claims made trigger to occurrence coverage and vice versa. Reason C is not correct. This misstates the claims made trigger by omitting the retroactive date requirement and limits occurrence coverage unnecessarily to premises exposures. Question 17. Which statement best defines the product's completed operations hazard in a commercial general liability policy? A. Liability exposures for bodily injury or property damage arising out of the insured's products or completed work away from premises after operations have been completed or abandoned. B. Liability exposures arising out of premises owned or rented by the insured C. Liability arising from faulty workmanship on work still in progress at the insured's premises. D. Liability for damage to the insured's product occurring during transit to a customer. The correct answer is A. Products completed operations hazard covers liability for bodily injury or property damage arising out of the insured's products and completed work after operations have been finished or abandoned, including exposures away from premises. Reason B is not correct. This describes premises liability exposures, not the product's completed operations hazard. Reason C is not correct. This describes operations in progress exposures, not exposures that arise after completion or abandonment. Reason D is not correct. This addresses damage to the insured's own product, which is an excluded property damage exposure rather than product's completed operations. Question 18. Under the premises and operations hazard of a commercial general liability policy, which of the following exposures is covered? A. Personal injury resulting from the insured's advertising campaign errors. B. Faulty design of a product manufactured by the insured causing property damage. C. Negligent professional advice provided to a client leading to financial loss. D. A customer slipping on a wet floor at the insured's retail store. The correct answer is D. The premises and operations hazard covers liability exposures arising from the insured's premises or operations, such as slip and fall accidents on insured premises. Reason A is not correct. This describes personal and advertising liability exposures, not premises or operations hazard. Reason B is not correct. This describes product liability exposures which fall under the product's completed operations hazard. Reason C is not correct. This describes professional liability exposures which are excluded from premises and operations hazard. Question 19. During a promotional campaign, Bold Leaf Designs used a competitor's slogan and published customer reviews without consent, leading to lawsuits alleging slogan infringement and defamation. Which alleged offense is not classified as a personal and advertising injury under the CGL policy's offense list? A. Slogan infringement. B. Breach of contract. C. Defamation. D. Violation of privacy. The correct answer is B. The personal and advertising injury offense list covers defamation, slogan, or title infringement, and privacy violations, but does not include breach of contract, which is a contractual dispute rather than a listed personal or advertising injury. Reason A is not correct. Slogan infringement is explicitly included as a personal and advertising injury offense under the CGL policy. Reason C is not correct. Defamation is one of the core personal and advertising injury offenses covered by the CGL policy. Reason D is not correct. Violation of privacy is listed among the personal and advertising injuries, so it is covered. Question 20. Meadowview Farms faced a lawsuit for alleged bodily injury and incurred costs for attorney fees taxed against the insured appeal bond premiums and medical examination fees for the claimant. Under the CGL policy's supplementary payments, which expense would not be covered outside the policy limits? A. Interest accruing before judgment. B. Premiums on appeal bonds. C. Claimant's medical examination fees. D. Insured's lost earnings for trial attendance. The correct answer is C. Supplementary payments cover interest, appeal bond premiums, and loss of earnings, but do not reimburse the claimant's medical examination fees, which relate to damages rather than insured's legal cost obligations. Reason A is not correct. Interest on a judgment before it is paid is covered as a supplementary payment. Reason B is not correct. Premiums on bonds to appeal judgments are explicitly included in supplementary payments. Reason D is not correct. Lost earnings for attending trial at the insurer's request are covered outside the policy limits. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.